Hey, my name is Clayton. I started this channel just to talk about some college football and some NFL. Today I was going to go over kind of the steps I take to make a projection on both, and also kind of give you a little background of how I've got to this point. I'm by no means a professional. This is my first ever video, so we'll get better as the season goes on. But I will say that just some ground rules as far as what I do with each one. So we'll start off with college, and I'll say that with college, I like to look at sides, money lines, and every now and then an over-under or total. Maybe later on, closer to the season, I'll make a video as far as each one of those and kind of break down the different ways that people like to wager or bet on college football and NFL for anybody who may not know and just now getting into it. But I've been doing this for quite a while. This is probably my 5th year of actually doing this on a regular basis and not just waiting until Saturday to look at the game, but actually making it a process as we go. So saying that, I'll get into what I look at before I make a prediction for college football. So the first thing is, this is the basic thing that I get every year during the summer. This kind of gets you excited. You know, there's some good information in here. As you can see, I tabbed it out where I can look at each conference a little quicker. I can flip to it pretty quick. But mainly that's just all the way up to the lead of the start of the football season. After that, I really go off of my information and what I feel like is going to happen. So what I look at with that magazine, that publication, is projections, players lost and players coming back, starters in particular. So a lot of times you may only have a few starters that are leaving or left last season, but they may be in very important positions or they may not. So a lot of that has to be weighed as you're looking at it. Okay, so once I get the magazine, I start comparing it and what the projections that they've set aside and their team set aside, and looking at how my power rankings finished last season. So I take the two, kind of get rid of some of the lost starters, things like that, and try to carry on from what I felt like last year. Now, obviously, if you've got a coaching change, even coordinators, that can mean a big difference in what that team does from year to year. So you have to take things like that in consideration. So once I look at the new data and also what I had last season, I make my own power ranking. As you can see, a lot of it's empty, but that's because it's week to week. So I'll start off over here, and I've got week 1 power rankings for each team. Each offense, each defense, and an overall. Really, the overall is just a kind of a basic look at how that game's going to start off without looking at anything else. Then I start looking into the offense and defense, getting a little more in depth. So once I look at my power ranking, I look at simply schedules. Okay, so this is just a quick look at, see what's coming up. If the team come off a bye, you know, what's ahead, if it's a look-ahead game, such as that. Once I get the schedules down, I have put together some data. Okay, so I went back and looked at against the spread data in college for the last 6 years. So last year I set aside, and all summer long I found, you know, several websites that had data, and I tried to back test and make sure that they were correct data. And so I set back 5 years from last summer, well, including last fall. That was 6 seasons of football data for all the Power 5 conferences. Okay, so what that data represents is against the spread. Okay, so I split it up into each conference, and then I also did all together as one Excel spreadsheet. And I look at how that team performs against the number. Nothing situational, nothing individual teams. It's all by conference. So then, and I will reflect on that several times during the season. Each week, each game, I'll look back at my data, because I like to use that very last as, does it support my argument doesn't go against my argument. That's not the strongest point to any breaking down any game. Obviously, in college, a lot of people try to tell you that it's individual matchups. That's huge. I try to look at a few other possibilities and how the game will come out. So the data just is there simply to support. Once I get all that information, I have made a little spreadsheet, and all this is to put it all together and have it all on one piece of paper before I look at the game, okay? So pretty much just a team, what conference it is, and then my notes, my power rankings, and as the year goes on, different stats that I'll look at. Obviously, week 1, you're not going to have points for, points against. But as the season goes on, I will look at that. And I know a lot of people in baseball look at scores for, scores against, but I like to look at it in football as well. That's just another one of those simple, basic, how's that team playing? Do they score a lot of points? Do they not score a lot of points? Do they give up a lot of points, etc. I also look at home and away stats. General, do they win the games home and away? Okay. Also, home and away trends, ATS. So against the spread, do they play well on the road enough to beat the spread, or are they terrible on the road? Do they barely squeak by and get wins, or do they cover the spread every week? And then lastly, injuries. Injuries are huge. Is a player that's only on the field 10 to 15 plays a game, or is it the starting quarterback who's been there 2 years and he's out for the next 3 weeks? That's a big deal, obviously. Now, I will say this. If it's a big player like a quarterback or starting left tackle or a defensive tackle who's got 6 sacks in the first 5 games, Vegas is going to adjust that point spread to that. So maybe it's not the best player on the field that gets hurt. You don't look at that. Maybe you look at a secondary player. Maybe you look at somebody who's only on the field 25 snaps a game. That could cause a point or two to swing either way. That's pretty much it for college. There's a few other in-depth things I'll do. Like, for instance, I don't bet on my favorite team. I don't bet against them. I don't bet on or against the rival. I obviously, being an Alabama fan, Alabama grad, I will never put money on Alabama. I shouldn't say never. There has been a few instances where I felt like they just were the right team in that situation, but very seldom, okay? And also, any kind of rivalry. Anytime Auburn or LSU or Tennessee, I don't like to play on or against those teams just because I try to take my personal emotions out of what I'm doing, okay? So that's pretty much it for college. Anything else in depth we'll get to in the next couple weeks. NFL is a lot less things I look through just because being from the state of Alabama, we don't have an NFL team and I'm not as familiar with it. Now, I did go back on my data, my personal data that I talked about in the college section, and I went back even further, okay? So I went back 10 seasons, including last season, 11 total seasons against the spread data for all the NFL teams. I broke them down to each conference, each division. So, starting off, I also look at other publications, okay? So I get my basic feel of that team. Once I do that, I set my own power rankings compared to what I had them finishing last year's power rankings, okay? Regular season. So I take last year's regular season power rankings, go to this year, see what they lost, see what they gained, who got big contracts, who's still working to get a big contract, who's going into a contract year. It's a big deal in the NFL, okay? Then I look at schedules. Again, divisions. Each team plays 6 divisional games out of their 16-game regular season. Is that divisional game back-to-back? Is it sandwiched in between a non-divisional game? Things like that. Look at trends. Look at a lot of trends on the NFL just because emotional trends. How did they fare on this? Did they score a lot of points last week? Did they barely cover? Things like that in the NFL. These are professional players. A lot of times they go opposite of what they did the week before. You got to look at those situations. Update my sheets just like I do in college. I get all my information on one page, and then I try to make my pick from that page. And as the season goes on, I look at against the spread, home or away. I look at rushing for, rushing against. passing for, passing against, and obviously injuries. Now the big thing for me in the NFL is I only bet teasers. A lot of people say that that's a terrible bet, but if you look over the past data for many years, the lines in the NFL are so set and are so sharp that a lot of times the final score will finish within 4 to 5 points of that line, okay? Well, see, if you get a 6-point teaser, you're feeling pretty good about yourself, okay? So a lot of times I only look at the teasers, and I will say that teasers, you know, yes, you're betting 2 teams to win 1 bet. A lot of times it's minus 110 odds, but when you're moving the line that many points, to me, it just feels safe, okay? So I don't like doing it for college, but I do like doing it for NFL. And that's about it for today. I just want to go over some basics and what I look for in projecting a game. Now, like I said, next few weeks, I'll try to make some better videos and try to give you a little more insight on some specific things. Thanks.